He rejected his fated Luna under the full moonlight, right on the night she was crowned. The entire pack froze in horror as silver tears streamed down her face. The mate bond shattered with a sound like breaking thunder. Her wolf screamed into the night sky. The Alpha King turned away, convinced she was too weak to rule beside him. But as her blood soaked the sacred ground, a cold realization hit him like a blade. He had just discarded the one soul the moon goddess herself had chosen for him. The pack whispered, eyes turned, loyalty cracked. 5 years later, a powerful queen strides back into his territory, crown gleaming, eyes burning with moonlight fire. And the Alpha who once rejected her now drops to his knees. But what she does next will change the kingdom forever. Welcome to Moonlight Rejected Luna Stories, where rejected Lunas rise, Alphas regret, and broken bonds burn brighter in the dark. Hit play for the full audiobook, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss her revenge. Let's begin.
Episode 1, The Night of the Coronation. No one in the kingdom expected the coronation to end in betrayal. The sacred clearing blazed with silver light as the full moon rose high above the towering pines. Hundreds of wolves gathered in a silent circle around the ancient moon altar, their glowing eyes fixed on the stone platform where destiny itself was about to unfold. Tonight was not just any ceremony. Tonight, the Alpha King would finally claim his fated Luna. At the center of the altar stood the young Luna. Her long dark hair shimmered under the moonlight, the delicate silver coronation crown resting gently against her brow. A white ceremonial cloak flowed behind her like drifting mist, and though her hands trembled slightly, her eyes glowed with quiet devotion. Across from her stood the Alpha King. Tall. Unmoving. His black armor reflected the pale moon like polished obsidian, and the golden fire in his wolf eyes made every warrior in the clearing lower their gaze in respect. He was the strongest Alpha the kingdom had seen in generations, and tonight he would bind his soul to hers. The High Elder lifted the sacred blade toward the moon. The moon goddess has chosen, the elder's voice echoed across the clearing. Alpha King, do you accept your fated Luna and crown her beside you? The entire pack held its breath. The Luna's heart pounded so loudly she could feel the bond between them pulsing beneath her skin, warm and alive. She stepped forward slowly, offering her hand to him. All he had to do was take it. But the Alpha did not move. A strange tension rippled through the air. His golden eyes hardened. And then, his voice cut through the sacred silence like a blade. I reject you. The words crashed through the clearing like thunder. Gasps erupted from the pack as the Luna froze, her outstretched hand trembling in the cold moonlight. The invisible mate bond between them suddenly cracked, a violent pain tearing through her chest as if something deep inside her soul had just shattered. Silver tears spilled down her face. Why, she whispered, her voice barely a breath. The Alpha turned away from her as if she were nothing. Because, he said coldly, my queen will not be weak. The moment his words fell, the sacred ground beneath the altar began to tremble. And somewhere high above them, the full moon suddenly burned brighter. Much brighter than it should have. As if the moon goddess herself had just witnessed the rejection. And she was not pleased. What no one in that clearing realized was that the Alpha King had just made the greatest mistake of his life. Because the Luna he rejected tonight was never meant to be ordinary. And the power about to awaken inside her would soon shake the entire kingdom. Episode 2, The Mate Bond Shatters. The power about to awaken inside her would soon shake the entire kingdom. But first, the bond had to break. A sharp, invisible crack tore through the night. The Luna gasped as the mate bond between her and the Alpha King snapped like a chain pulled too tight. Agony exploded through her chest, stealing the air from her lungs. It felt as if claws were ripping through her soul from the inside. Her wolf screamed. The sound was not human. It was raw, primal, echoing across the sacred clearing like a wounded howl thrown at the moon itself. The pack recoiled. Some wolves staggered back as the pain of the broken bond rippled outward like a shockwave. Even those not tied to the bond felt the unnatural violence of it. The moon goddess' blessing was never meant to be rejected so cruelly. But the Alpha King did not move. His jaw tightened. His fists slowly clenched at his sides. For the briefest moment, something flickered in his golden eyes: pain, regret, something dangerously close to doubt. Then it vanished. His face hardened into cold stone. The Luna dropped to her knees. A thin line of blood slipped from the corner of her lips as the bond fully tore apart. The sacred symbols carved into the moon altar began to glow beneath her trembling hands, as if the ancient ground itself felt her suffering. Whispers broke through the crowd. "She's bleeding. The bond shouldn't break like that. This isn't natural." Her vision blurred. The world tilted violently as her wolf retreated deep inside her mind, whimpering in unbearable grief. Still, she lifted her head. Her silver-bright eyes searched the Alpha's face one last time. He did not look at her. Instead, he turned his back completely. The message was unmistakable. "You mean nothing to me." The Luna's strength finally gave out. Her body collapsed against the glowing altar stones, crimson staining the sacred ground where queens had once been crowned. A horrified silence swallowed the clearing. Because every wolf present understood one terrifying truth. Rejecting a fated mate beneath the full moon, during a coronation on sacred ground, was something the moon goddess herself might never forgive. And high above the trembling pack, the moon suddenly pulsed with a strange, cold light. As if something ancient had just awakened. Something that had been waiting for this very moment. Episode 3, The Moon Goddess Speaks. Something that had been waiting for this very moment. The Luna lay motionless against the sacred altar, the cold stone pressing into her cheek as the world around her faded into distant echoes. The murmurs of the pack, the restless shifting of wolves, even the rustling forest wind, everything grew faint, as though the night itself were pulling away from her. Darkness crept in. Her wolf was silent now, curled deep within her spirit like a wounded creature hiding from the storm. The pain of the broken bond still throbbed through her chest, heavy and suffocating, as if the very air had turned to stone. So this was how it ended. Rejected. Humiliated. Forgotten. The moonlight above her dimmed as her vision blurred. Then, a soft glow stirred behind her closed eyes. At first it was faint, like distant silver mist drifting across still water. But slowly, the glow brightened until it surrounded her completely, warm and strangely calm. And from within that light, a voice whispered. Not loud. Not harsh. But ancient. Powerful. And unmistakably gentle. Child of the moon, rise. Her breath caught. The Luna's eyes fluttered open, yet the world she saw was no longer the sacred clearing. The forest, the wolves, the altar, everything had vanished. She stood alone in a vast ocean of silver light beneath an endless moonlit sky. The voice spoke again, clearer now. Do not mistake rejection for the end of your path. The Luna's trembling voice barely formed the question. Who are you? The light around her pulsed softly. And the answer flowed through her like moonlight through water. I am the one who chose you. A sudden warmth surged through her chest, pushing back the emptiness left by the broken bond. The Alpha believes he has cast aside weakness, the voice continued, calm but unyielding. But what he has truly done is awaken destiny. The silver light flared brighter. Power stirred deep within her wolf, something older, deeper, far more dangerous than the bond that had just been shattered. Your story was never meant to end at his side, the voice whispered. It was meant to begin. And far above the unconscious Luna lying on the sacred altar, the full moon blazed with a sudden, blinding brilliance. As if the moon goddess herself had just placed her mark upon a new queen. Episode 4, Exile into the Wild. As if the moon goddess herself had just placed her mark upon a new queen. The blinding silver glow vanished. Cold air rushed back into the Luna's lungs as her body jerked against the sacred altar. The whispers of the pack returned, louder now, fearful, uncertain. But before she could lift her head, rough hands pulled her away from the glowing stones. "She cannot remain here," one of the elders said sharply. "The bond is broken. The Alpha has spoken." The words felt distant, as though spoken through water. Through half-closed eyes, the Luna saw the Alpha King standing at the edge of the clearing, his broad back turned toward her. He did not look back. Not once. And just like that, the verdict was sealed. By dawn, she was gone. No ceremony. No farewell. Only exile. The forest beyond the kingdom stretched endlessly, a maze of towering black pines and mist-covered valleys where lone wolves rarely survived. The Luna stumbled through it alone, her white coronation cloak torn and soaked with dirt, her body still weak from the shattered bond. Each step burned. Hunger clawed at her stomach. The cold night wind sliced through her skin. More than once she collapsed onto the damp earth, too exhausted to move. But something deep inside her refused to let her die. The faint silver warmth left by the moon goddess pulsed quietly within her chest, urging her forward. Hours passed. Then days. By the third night, the forest had grown darker, wilder, wrong somehow. Branches snapped somewhere behind her. Low growls drifted through the trees. Her wolf stirred weakly in alarm. The Luna tried to run, but her legs gave out. She fell hard onto the forest floor, the world spinning as darkness threatened to swallow her again. Footsteps approached. Slow. Careful. Shadows moved between the trees, tall figures emerging from the mist. Wolves with hardened eyes and scarred armor, their presence dangerous and unfamiliar. Rogues. One of them crouched beside her, studying her pale face and the faint silver glow still flickering beneath her skin. A long silence followed. Then the rogue leader spoke, his voice filled with stunned disbelief. "Well, this is unexpected." The Luna barely had strength to open her eyes. "What do you want?" she whispered. The rogue's gaze darkened with something that looked almost like recognition. "We didn't find you, girl," he said quietly. His words sent a strange chill through the night air. "You were sent to us." And far above the silent forest, the full moon watched everything. Episode 5, The Hidden Kingdom. The full moon watched everything. The Luna's vision blurred as the tall figures surrounded her, their silhouettes shifting through the mist like silent predators. For a moment she wondered if death had finally come for her. But death did not kneel beside her. The rogue leader studied her face carefully, his sharp eyes narrowing at the faint silver glow pulsing beneath her skin. "Careful," one of the others murmured behind him. "She smells like royal blood." "And something else," another added quietly. The leader exhaled slowly, then slid one arm beneath her shoulders, lifting her gently from the frozen ground. Despite his scarred appearance, his grip was steady. "You're not dying out here," he said. The Luna barely had strength to protest. Her head tilted weakly against his shoulder as the group moved swiftly through the forest. They traveled deeper into the wilderness than she had ever imagined existed. Through steep ravines, across ancient rivers, and past towering cliffs hidden behind thick curtains of fog. Hours passed. Then suddenly, the forest opened. The Luna's eyes whitened faintly. Before them stood something impossible. A massive stone gateway carved into the side of a mountain, glowing faintly with ancient moon symbols. Torches flickered along towering walls, and beyond them stretched an entire hidden city of wolves. Not rogues. A kingdom. Warriors moved through the gates in disciplined formations, their armor marked with silver crests she had never seen before. Towers rose high against the moonlit sky, older than any structure in her former pack. Her breath caught. This place," she whispered weakly. "Doesn't exist," the rogue leader finished with a faint smile. "That's what the outside world believes." As they carried her through the gates, wolves stopped and stared. Whispers followed her path like wind through tall grass. Finally, they reached a grand stone hall. At the far end sat a woman upon a dark throne, her silver crown gleaming beneath the moonlight streaming through the ceiling. The queen. The moment the queen's eyes fell upon the wounded Luna, she slowly rose to her feet. A strange silence filled the hall. Then the queen spoke words that made every wolf in the chamber stiffen. "So," she said softly, her gaze burning with ancient recognition. "The prophecy has finally begun." And the Luna had just stepped into a destiny far greater than she could imagine. Episode 6, Awakening the Moonfire. The prophecy has finally begun. The Luna's legs trembled as she knelt before the queen, her silver eyes barely holding onto consciousness. But the queen's gaze was unyielding, like the cold, piercing light of the full moon itself. "You survived what should have destroyed you," the queen said, her voice low but commanding. "And for that, you are ready." "Ready, for what?" the Luna whispered, her throat dry, her body aching from the journey. The queen gestured to a circle of warriors, each clad in dark, silver-etched armor, their eyes glowing faintly like embers beneath the moonlight. "To awaken what lies dormant within you," she said. "To become what the moon goddess intended, a queen who commands power no alpha could ever fathom." For days that turned into nights without pause, the Luna trained. Every muscle burned. Every bone ached. The warriors pushed her to limits she didn't know she possessed. Running through forests thick with frost, leaping across cliffs under moonlit skies, sparring with blades that glowed with ancient energy. But the most grueling part wasn't the physical trials. It was the awakening of her wolf, deep within her soul. At first, it whimpered and resisted, still shaken by the broken mate bond. But one night, under a blood-red moon, something changed. Her wolf roared from the depths of her spirit. A surge of silver fire erupted around her chest, spiraling outward in glowing tendrils. Moonlight bent and shimmered in response, painting her form with ethereal light. The Luna gasped as her eyes flared bright silver, the power singing through every fiber of her being. Pain and ecstasy collided as something older than time itself answered her call. The queen stepped forward, smiling faintly. "Moonfire," she whispered. "Only chosen queens can wield it. And now, it is yours." The Luna lifted her head, feeling her broken past ignite into a force that no rejection, no alpha, could ever contain. Above the hidden kingdom, the full moon pulsed brighter than ever. And somewhere far beyond, the Alpha King's territory trembled, though he did not yet know why. Episode 7, The Alpha's Regret begins. Above the hidden kingdom, the full moon pulsed brighter than ever. And somewhere far beyond, the Alpha King's territory trembled, though he did not yet know why. The first sign came quietly. A chill that should not have belonged to spring settled over the Alpha's lands. Crops withered overnight, their golden stalks blackened as if scorched by invisible fire. Rivers slowed, thick with mud, while wolves fell sick with no cause. The Alpha called his healers, his advisors, even the elders, but no one could explain the blight. Then came the murmurs. Pack members whispered in corners, their golden eyes flicking nervously toward him. "The moon goddess, she is angry," one muttered. Another added, "He rejected his true Luna." Did he not see the signs? The Alpha's jaw tightened. He dismissed them. Punished them even. But at night, alone in the great hall, doubt gnawed at him like a wolf at a carcass. He tried to tell himself it was coincidence. Natural misfortune. Yet the disasters escalated. Wolves grew restless, challenging his authority. Skirmishes erupted between clans that had long been loyal. Even his inner circle began questioning his leadership, their loyalty cracking like brittle ice underfoot. And then, the dreams began. Visions of silverite fire, of a glowing queen standing tall in the moonlight, of a bond he had destroyed. Flashed behind his closed lids every time he tried to sleep. Each dream left him drenched in sweat, chest pounding, a voice echoing in his mind, "You made a mistake." The Alpha King's pride, his armor of cold indifference, began to crumble. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. And far above the kingdom, the full moon watched silently, knowing the reckoning had only just begun. Somewhere, the Luna who had once been rejected was rising, and soon, her shadow would stretch over the Alpha's lands. A shadow he could neither fight nor ignore. Episode 8, The Rise of the Moon Queen. Somewhere, the Luna who had once been rejected was rising, and soon, her shadow would stretch over the Alpha's lands. Years passed, but the pain of that night never left her. It became fuel. Every scar, every tear, every whispered word of betrayal molded her into something sharper, stronger, and far more dangerous than anyone in the kingdom could imagine. Under the guidance of the Hidden Queen and her elite warriors, the Luna honed her body and her mind into perfect instruments of power. Her steps became silent as falling snow. Her strikes became precise as a blade of moonlight. And her wolf, once timid and broken, roared with a brilliance that could ignite the air itself. The moonfire within her grew, swirling around her in silver flames that no sword could cut, no shield could contain. She mastered it, bending it to her will, shaping it into both weapon and armor. Wherever she stepped, the ground seemed to hum with her presence, and even the fiercest wolves bowed instinctively before her. Then came the day of her coronation. The Hidden Kingdom gathered in the grand hall beneath a sky bright with twin moons. Wolves of every clan and rank stood in awe as she emerged from the silver mist. Her armor gleamed like molten moonlight, her crown radiating with an aura of unyielding authority. The warriors knelt, their banners snapping in the wind, and even the elders, who had trained her from the beginning, whispered, almost reverently, "She is the one." The Luna, no longer a girl broken by rejection, lifted her chin. Her eyes, silver and blazing, scanned the hall. In that moment, she was more than a survivor. She was the Moon Queen, the force the Alpha King had foolishly cast aside, and the harbinger of a reckoning that would shake kingdoms. And far away, in the shadow of his failing throne, the Alpha King dreamed of silver eyes and blazing moonfire, not knowing how close that reckoning had come. Because now, she was unstoppable. Episode 9, The Return of the Queen. 5 years passed, and the Alpha King's lands had grown restless under his faltering rule. Wolves whispered of famine, disease, and strange, unexplainable omens. But none of his troubles could have prepared him for what appeared on the horizon that night. A cold wind swept across the kingdom as the first silver streaks of moonlight caught on something in the distance. Eyes narrowed. The pack stirred uneasily. From the tree-line emerged a figure mounted on a black steed that seemed to drink the shadows. The armor gleamed like molten silver, the long cloak trailing like liquid moonlight behind her. The Luna. Or rather, the queen she had become. She rode with the confidence of a storm, every movement commanding awe and fear. Wolves instinctively parted, bowing low as her presence approached the gates. Her crown shimmered with moonfire, her silver eyes burning like twin moons against the darkened night. The air seemed to hum with her energy, every heartbeat in the kingdom echoing the power she radiated. The Alpha King, alerted by the approaching riders, stormed to the battlements. His eyes widened, disbelief and recognition crashing into him like a blade. The girl he had rejected, the fragile Luna who had once collapsed at the altar, was now a towering figure of dominance and fury. She's returned," a soldier whispered, voice trembling. The queen's gaze swept across the castle, piercing the walls, the guards, the courtiers, landing finally on the Alpha himself. A slow, deliberate smile curved her lips, cold and unreadable. Her steed stopped at the edge of the field, and silence fell, thick as a storm cloud. For the first time, the Alpha King felt the raw weight of regret, a gnawing fear he could neither fight nor ignore. The pack held its breath. The kingdom held its breath. And somewhere deep within the shadows of the moonlit clearing, a single thought burned in the queen's mind. He will never forget me. Her hand hovered near the hilt of her blade. And in that moment, everything changed. Episode 10, The Alpha falls to his knees. Her hand hovered near the hilt of her blade. The Alpha King froze. Time itself seemed to shiver under the weight of her presence. His chest tightened as a familiar warmth, long buried and forbidden, erupted from the depths of his soul. The mate bond, broken years ago, snapped awake like wildfire, flaring with a force he had no control over. His golden eyes widened, pupils contracting as his wolf screamed within him, sensing the power and dominance of the Luna he had forsaken. She's real," he whispered, his voice trembling, barely audible over the sudden roar of his own heartbeat. "This can't be real." The queen dismounted gracefully, the ground glowing faintly beneath her boots as if acknowledging her command. Every step she took sent tremors through the Alpha's mind, memories of the night he had rejected her flashing unbidden, the altar, the silver tears, the sound of her wolf's howl shattering the air. "You," he choked, dropping to one knee, armor clanking against the stones, head bowed. I was wrong. Please, forgive me." But the queen stopped, only inches away. Her eyes burned silver-hot, radiating power, fury, and a cold edge of justice. The full moon above mirrored her intensity, bathing her in a divine light that made the Alpha King feel small, powerless, and exposed in a way he had never experienced. Around them, the pack held its breath. Some wolves whimpered, some bowed instinctively, sensing the dangerous tension of raw power and ancient destiny colliding in the clearing. The queen studied him silently. No words escaped her lips. Her wolf stirred, a coiled storm of strength and moonfire, as if demanding judgment. The Alpha King's hand trembled as he reached forward, a silent plea spilling from every movement. I will do anything, just, please." A smile, faint but deadly, curved the queen's lips. She stepped back, letting the tension stretch to its breaking point. And then, with a voice that rolled like thunder through the night. "Do you think begging will undo the years you've lost?" The full moon pulsed brighter. The bond between them burned hotter. And in that instant, the Alpha King understood, this was no longer about him. The queen held the power now. And everything he had ever taken for granted was about to be tested. Episode 11, The Truth of the Prophecy. The queen held the power now. And everything he had ever taken for granted was about to be tested. A hush fell over the clearing as the Alpha King's knees pressed against the cold stone, the weight of his guilt heavy in his chest. The queen's silver eyes glimmered with a light that seemed to pierce through time itself. And then, from the shadows of the hall, figures emerged. Ancient elders draped in robes stitched with silver threads that shimmered like starlight. Their faces were lined with age, their eyes sharp with knowledge that spanned centuries. "Enough," one of the elders said, his voice carrying like rolling thunder. "The truth must be revealed." The Alpha King's gaze lifted, trembling, as the elders approached. The queen's presence seemed to amplify every word, every gesture, every heartbeat in the air around them. "You were chosen together," the eldest said, voice echoing with authority. "The moon goddess decreed it long before either of you drew breath. Your bond, your destiny, was never broken. It was delayed. Tested. Refined." The Alpha swallowed, the weight of years of arrogance pressing down on him. "Tested. Yes," the elder interrupted. "Your pride, your cruelty, your insistence on rejecting what was meant to be, it demanded humility. You had to understand the cost of casting aside the one who completes you." The queen's silver eyes softened ever so slightly, though the fire within them never dimmed. "And she said quietly, voice carrying the authority of moons and storms alike, had to discover my strength. My power. The moonfire that flows within me was not born for weakness or mercy. It was forged in betrayal, sharpened in exile, and awakened to command respect, mine and the kingdoms alike." The Alpha King's heart pounded. The truth hit him harder than any blade. The Luna he had scorned was never meant to be beneath him. She was never weak. She was always destiny itself. The elders nodded, their ancient presence almost vibrating with celestial weight. Now, the eldest said, "You must decide. Will you kneel in regret, or will you rise and walk beside her as was always intended?" The moon above pulsed, silver fire spilling across the land. Somewhere deep within the Alpha King, pride shattered. Somewhere deep within the queen, power solidified. And the prophecy had only just begun to unfold. Episode 12, Enemies in the Shadows. And the prophecy had only just begun to unfold. But destiny is never left unchallenged. Far beyond the moonlit clearing, in the jagged lands that bordered the Alpha's kingdom, eyes gleamed in darkness. The rival warlord had long watched the Alpha King's faltering rule, whispering promises of conquest to the shadows and the restless wolves under his command. Yet it was the arrival of the Moon Queen, radiant and untouchable, that ignited a fire in his ambitions. "They are weak," he growled, voice low and dripping with malice. Divided. Vulnerable. Now is the time to strike. The Alpha grovels. The Luna, or Queen, rather, is still tethered to fury. Their lands will burn, and both kingdoms will fall. No moonlight illuminated the path of his army, a silent tide of armored wolves, their teeth bared, claws sharp, eyes hungry. The warlord moved like a shadow, his intentions precise and merciless. He knew the Alpha would hesitate, he always did when pride tangled with fear, and the Queen's wrath would be a weapon, but one that had yet to be unleashed. By dawn, scouts reported the first signs of the invasion, smoke curling from border villages, distant cries slicing the morning air. Alarm rippled through the Alpha's kingdom. Warriors scrambled to the walls, hearts pounding, yet a shadow of doubt lingered over their leader. The Queen's eyes narrowed, silver flames flickering across her gaze. Her wolf stirred, coiling inside her, sensing danger in blood. "They think we are divided," she said, voice low and lethal. "They think we are weak." A hush fell over the Alpha King as he looked to her, fear and awe mingling in his expression. He had seen her power. He had seen her dominance. But now, standing side by side in the clearing, the reality hit him like a blade. This was war, and the enemy would not wait for mistakes to be forgiven. The moon overhead glared cold and unyielding. And somewhere in the darkened forest beyond the horizon, the rival warlord's army prepared to strike. The Queen's hand tightened on her blade. And the first wave of destruction was about to descend. Episode 13, The Battle of Two Crowns. The Queen's hand tightened on her blade. The first wave of the rival warlord's army descended like a living storm. Teeth glinted in the sun, claws tore at the earth, and armored wolves crashed against the outer walls with the force of avalanches. The ground shook, and the air hummed with tension as banners snapped violently in the wind. The Alpha King stood beside the Moon Queen, his armor scorched from skirmishes, his golden eyes wide with disbelief and awe. He had led armies before, but never like this, not with her, not with the power she radiated. The moonfire pulsed around her, a silver aura that seemed to consume darkness itself, leaving enemy warriors frozen in terror before they even struck. A war horn blared, echoing through the mountains. The Queen moved with unearthly grace, every strike precise, every movement a command of death and authority. Wolves fell beneath her blades and claws, their howls swallowed by the silver flames that twisted from her being. The Alpha King fought beside her, defending her flank, his own wolf roaring in defiance. Old instincts, old bonds, stirred violently between them, igniting emotions long buried, the sting of rejection, the ache of longing, and a strange, dangerous thrill in their synchrony. Every time he struck, she struck harder. Every time they defended, they saved each other from death's edge. Above them, the full moon bled silver fire across the battlefield, illuminating the clash of claws, steel, and moonfire. The enemy pressed forward relentlessly, yet the duo moved as one to two rulers, two crowns, two hearts in perfect, terrifying harmony. A rival general lunged toward the Queen, fangs bared and claws extended. The Alpha threw himself into her path, pain searing through his arm as he drove the attacker back. Her eyes flared silver, and with a whisper of moonfire, the enemy was sent flying, their bodies smoking where they fell. For a fleeting moment, the battlefield froze. The Alpha King looked at her, gasping, and she met his gaze, flames dancing across her face. In the chaos of war, in the screams and the fire, the unspoken truth rang clear, they were unstoppable together. But somewhere on the horizon, a darker force watched. And the battle had only just begun. Episode 14, The Choice of the Queen. But somewhere on the horizon, a darker force watched. The battlefield fell silent. Smoke curled into the sky, mingling with the silver light of the full moon. Wolves, both loyal and conquered, stood trembling, wounded, or kneeling in awe. The enemy had been driven back, their forces shattered, but the air remained thick with tension, the cost of victory heavy in every breath. Amid the carnage, the Moon Queen stood tall, moonfire still swirling faintly around her armor, her silver eyes blazing with triumph and authority. She had led armies, vanquished enemies, and forged a path that no one, not even the Alpha King, had imagined she could take. The Alpha King staggered toward her, his chest heaving, blood streaked across his armor and cheek. He fell to his knees in the mud, his wolf roaring within him in desperate remorse. the entire kingdom. His warriors, the elders, and even surviving enemies held their breath. "I was wrong," he said, voice raw with shame and longing. "I cast aside the one I was meant to stand beside. Please, allow me to make it right. Let us bond again. I am yours, if you will have me." The queen's eyes scanned him, piercing through every shred of pride, every hidden doubt. Silence stretched, thick and heavy, as the kingdom waited on tenterhooks. Wolves whispered, the wind stilled, even the full moon seemed to pause in anticipation. Her silver gaze softened slightly, but the fire in it never dimmed. She raised her hand, letting the faint glow of moonfire shimmer across the battlefield, and every wolf present felt the weight of her authority and the magnitude of her choice. "I will not be the Luna you once thought you could own," she said, voice steady, resonating like a command through the night. "But I am the queen I was always meant to be, and my choice will decide the fate of every pack." The Alpha King's eyes widened, hope and fear warring within him. Around them, the kingdom waited, hearts pounding, knowing that her answer would either unite or forever divide their world. And in that stillness, the queen's silver eyes flared brighter than ever, signaling that the final decision and the dawn of a new era was about to unfold. Episode 15, A Crown Forged in Moonlight. And in that stillness, the queen's silver eyes flared brighter than ever, signaling that the final decision and the dawn of a new era was about to unfold. The Alpha King's gaze locked on hers, heart hammering, soul exposed in ways he had never imagined. He waited, trembling, ready to accept whatever fate she chose even if it meant losing her completely. But the queen did not lower her hand. She did not kneel. She did not bend to the weight of his guilt. Instead, she lifted her head, letting the moonfire swirl around her like a living crown of silver flames. Her voice rang clear, cutting through the tension like a blade of light. "I am not the Luna you once rejected," she said, her words deliberate, each one heavy with power and purpose. "I am the queen I was always meant to become. And I will not exist beneath anyone's shadow, not even yours." A stunned silence fell over the kingdom. Wolves, elders, and warriors alike held their breath. The Alpha King's jaw tightened, the old ache of longing and regret flaring once more, but he did not speak. However, the queen continued, eyes blazing brighter, "We are bound by destiny, not by chains. We will rule together, not as master and mate, but as two sovereign rulers united by the moon goddess herself. Our kingdoms will merge. Our strength will combine. And no darkness, no enemy, no betrayal shall ever break us again." The Alpha King rose slowly, awe and humility etched into every line of his face. For the first time, he saw her as more than the girl he had rejected. He saw a force of nature, a queen forged in fire, in exile, in Moonfire itself. Cheers erupted across the kingdoms as the wolves recognized the new order. The Moon Queen raised her hand, and Moonfire cascaded over the assembled clans, binding them in light and power. And so, under the silver gaze of the full moon, the rejected Luna became legend. Not because she bent to love, but because she rose, unbroken, unstoppable, and unmatched, the most powerful queen the wolves had ever known. A new era had begun. And no alpha or enemy would ever forget her name.